My Sleep Paralysis Story. Written and narrated by David Paturel. The following story is a personal story of mine and is 100% true. So I need to set up the backstory. I was around 16 or 17 years old, so almost 10 years ago, and at this time I never even considered using any drugs or cannabis, and it was very rare that I would touch alcohol. Also at this time was when I first had my violin, and I was told that if you play what comes to your head, as in making it up as you go or freestyle, that is you playing with your soul. I also at this time didn't really hear about sleep paralysis, lucid dreaming, or shadow people. It was around Christmas time in Fort McMurray, Alberta, Canada, and I lived at home with my parents. Usually there were a lot of people at the house, but on this day there was only myself and my parents. I was laying in bed in my room, which was halfway down a short hallway that goes into the living room where my parents were sitting. The way that my room was set up was that there was two doors in the complete opposite sides of the room. One was to the hallway and the other was to a sunroom that we converted into a temporary bedroom, so no light came from there. My room was also small enough to fit my bed, my desk, and a little nightstand, which left just enough space to walk through my room and have access to my small closet. Laying next to my desk was my violin in its case, which I could see from my bed if I looked directly straight to my right. So I was laying on my bed with the door wide open. I think I was texting people and I must have dozed off, but normally you shut your eyes and get sleepy. That didn't happen in this case. Instead, it was 1 second everything was normal, and the next I'm in what I now know as sleep paralysis. So I'm assuming that my body fell asleep, but my mind never did. But again, I didn't know what sleep paralysis was. As I said, 1 second I was awake, and the next I was in sleep paralysis, and in this case, I wasn't able to move anything but my eyeballs. The sounds around me was like if the volume was turned down by a lot, and my vision was perfectly clear. I was having trouble breathing because I couldn't really move, and I also was panicking really hard because, again, I had no idea what was going on. I also saw nothing on or over me. I was able to look around with my eyes, and in the corner of my eye to my direct right, I saw a shadow. Now, where I first saw it, it was a small shadow kind of balled up on the floor where my violin was, and I could tell it was all the way next to the wall. But the shadow started to grow, as if it was originally a man curled up beginning to stand up, which stood at the height of an average adult. No details in the shadow, but I knew that I could see the details of the stuff on my desk and on my walls. So it just had no details, just a shadow. This shadow did not walk towards me. Instead, it started to grow taller and taller until its head was directly above mine. At this point, I started to try to scream, but nothing. No sound came out of my mouth, and my mouth didn't move, but it absolutely felt like I was screaming my head off. Remember, it was like the volume in the world went way down. This shadow's head started getting closer to me until it was about a foot above mine. This, mind you, was a transparent shadow. I could see the light from the ceiling, but it was much darker where the figure was. Where the shadow was about a foot away, it started to feel like my breath was being taken away, like the feeling of exhaling slowly. Normally, when I do this, I can only do this for at most like 10 seconds. This felt like 4 or 5 minutes of only exhaling. In this time, I never felt a pause or felt myself breathing in. I only felt a continuous exhale. After what felt like 4 or 5 minutes, I snapped out of it suddenly and sprung up quickly. After taking a moment to calm down, I got up and walked to the living room where my parents were. I asked "Hey, did you guys hear anything in the last 5 minutes?" They confusedly said no. I then walked back to my room and looked around, and there was no sign of anything happening. When I told a friend of mine at the time about this, she said, "Don't worry about it." I then asked for clarification, and she got mad and said, "This is something you don't want to think about, so don't worry about it, and don't think about this again." I have never had anything like this ever happen again, and I never had any sort of sleep paralysis again either.